Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We're sorry this is coming a little later than hoped, but this is the Last of Us finale. We're going to chat through the last episode. Me and Ben, who's been here the whole way. Hey Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm sad that this is literally the last of us, me and you.
It is, at least until I think maybe 2025. I think that's season 2 potentially coming then. So we're going to talk all about the finale today, and then maybe just our general thoughts on the season as a whole. But before we get into it, this last episode, yay, nay, did you enjoy it?
Big yay. Big fucking yay from me. What about you, as someone who knew what was coming?
I'm just very thrilled that you enjoyed it. It's a yay from me, but it was very close to what I expected to happen, so it didn't feel as impactful, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm glad. I think I get more joy from other people enjoying it, so that's what's good for me.
I'm so glad that the dynamic of this has been one person who played the game and knows it quite intimately and one person who really doesn't, because we're getting both sides of the coin. Yeah,
I know, exactly. Without further ado, anyway, we start with a pregnant woman called Anna who's fleeing a pursuing infected by hiding in a house. The creature breaks in and bites Anna as she's giving birth. And we find out later this is Ellie. She's giving birth to Ellie. And sometime later, they are found by Marlene and a group of fireflies. Anna asks Marlene to take Ellie back to Boston, Massachusetts. Marlene hesitantly kills Anna and walks away with Ellie. So I can't quite remember because it is a couple weeks. But I think this was like a cold open.
It was. I knew you'd be happy.
It wasn't quite as shocking as those Chernobyl type ones, but it was still good. Did you hear who plays Anna? Have you heard about this?
I know now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was just so impressed that they got someone who really looked like Bella Ramsey, I thought, which was weird and almost sounded like her.
Yeah, well, so for those who don't know, Anna, who's Ellie's mum, is played by Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie in the game. Which I think, again, it continues this theme of actors from the game coming back in.
Yeah.
But I think this one works almost so perfectly because Ellie is almost Ashley Johnson's baby.
You got it. You said it.
And so it makes so much sense. And I imagine a lot of the emotion that she was feeling when she has to give up Ellie, that's probably just fresh out her veins,
Yeah, and do you know what? You've got to respect the creators of this. I know, obviously, Druckmann is involved in the game anyway, but you've got to respect the creators that they weren't like, right, game, you guys who are involved in the game, that's the game. We're doing our thing on the show over here. It's like, no, you guys are part of the legacy. You guys are part of the history of this story. You are absolutely going to be involved in it.
Yeah. I think they treat it with so much respect just throughout the whole thing, with just treating the story seriously. I mean, they don't. It's not like, oh, this is a video game. It's like they treat it like a real story, which it is.
Yeah.
So that's nice. We see Marlene again here, who obviously pops up later. But I thought she was a little bit when she's asking Ellie, asking Marlene to take Ellie. Marlene's like so cold about it, and I get it because and I guess we'll touch on this in a second, but Ellie might be infected, right?
Yeah.
But she's like, you're going to take my baby and kill me. And Marlene's just kind of like, nah. But then she does begrudgingly, and she kind of marches back in and shoots her in the head. But I was like, oh, come on, have a bit of heart, man.
Do you know what? I thought it was too brutal. If that's your friend, your mate, which she's meant to be, don't you even say a comforting line to her before you shoot her in the head?
Didn't say anything. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, she just marches back in and shoots her. And I get it's like ripping the plaster off, but...
That's it. You just got to be cold about these things. No emotion, because otherwise I'm going to not do it.
She also didn't say to Anna that, oh, I'll take Ellie, I'll do it. She takes Ellie out the room, and then she just goes in and shoots. So as far as Anna could be thinking, she's like, oh, maybe she's going to kill Ellie too.
I know, right?
But I suppose it doesn't matter because she's dead. Who knows?
Now, 2 questions for you. One, does this happen in the game, this scene?
No, doesn't. So very cool to see.
So 2, is this the first time that they've given a potential explanation for why Ellie...
Yeah.
Okay.
So Anna gets bitten by an infected as she's giving birth, which... is a bit crazy. I mean, I've not given birth, obviously.
Hopefully
but
not.
I'm sure that's probably very... I mean, I don't know how real... I mean, it's a zombie. Who cares? But she fights off this infected person while she's giving birth, which seems crazy. And then
that's
it didn't
the
click
power
with me.
of women, man.
Yeah, exactly. They'll do anything. She cuts the umbilical cord, and that's when it clicked to me. I was like, oh, of course. So Ellie's got a small dosage of this blood, this infected blood, but it's been like cut off before I guess anything can manifest. But yeah, we've never seen that explanation before, so it was interesting. So in the present, Joel and Ellie arrive in Salt Lake City in search of the Fireflies' secret lab. Ellie, still traumatized after her encounter with David, is unusually quiet. That is, until they encounter a herd of giraffes, which lifts her mood. Joel tells Ellie that they can return to Tommy's community and forget about their destination, but Ellie says after all they've been through, she wants to finish their journey. Later on, Joel opens up about his suicide attempt after Sarah's death and requests Ellie to tell him some jokes from her book, but they are ambushed by Firefly soldiers who capture Ellie and knock Joel unconscious. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but what was your opinion on the whole giraffe moment? I'm really interested to see what you thought.
I thought it was super cute. I'm a sucker for animals, so I thought it's real cute. It absolutely felt this must have happened in the video game, which is why this is now happening here. I kept saying, why are there all these giraffes here?
Yeah.
Because it's not a zoo, is it?
So that's the thing. They don't really set it up in the show well enough, I think. I don't know if you remember, but last podcast, I said there's an iconic moment from the game. And I said, if they get the real thing, it'll be very impressive. And apparently, they were real giraffes in like a big green screen studio. So it wasn't like graphics or anything. Yeah. So that was cool. But yeah, in the game, I think it's set up more that there is a zoo nearby and all these animals. I think you see like monkeys again or something or something like that. So it makes more sense as to why there's just randomly giraffes. Because I think in the show, it's like, what the fuck? There's a giraffe?
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of them, right? Because the others are in the background a little bit.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, it's supposed to be like a cute thing, like, you know, nature's taking back after the human race destroys the world before the outbreak. So it's like nature taking back, which is kind of sweet. But I don't think it fully worked for me. But again, I was like, I'm too close to this, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I get that because, it was a little bit, okay, this is only being included here because it's in the game. I liked it because I wasn't aware that was in the game, so it was still a nice moment. But it made me question, can animals be infected? Because we haven't seen any.
I don't actually know if they can or not.
There's a reason that I hope they can be because of something that I was hoping might happen in the second game from little glimpses that I've seen involving an aquarium and potential sharks, but obviously not.
Infected sharks, that would be insane.
Terrifying.
Maybe that's, I don't know. I actually can't remember if there are in the second game any infected animals, but I feel like it's probably like a logical thing. They'll be like, oh, let's have infected dogs, but I honestly can't remember. Yeah,
well, it's if it's a respiratory thing in the, well, COVID was and animals weren't getting it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so I enjoyed the moment, but it did feel a little bit lackluster. I think it's like a representation of Ellie's innocence, kind of. I mean, there's lots of points where this happens, but it's like, I feel like that's her innocence and she's at the end of her journey, and I feel like it's almost saying goodbye, and it's represented by this really pure, sweet encounter, this really sweet thing.
That's interesting.
And she pats the giraffe, and it goes, and again, I'll tell you one thing about the video game, I won't talk about it too much. Yeah. But you see it here. Joel lifts Ellie up to grab the ladder before they get to the giraffes. Let me give you a boost.
Very video game.
Yeah, it's more video game BS, but it's kind of fine. It worked. But in the game, this whole give me a boost thing, it's just like a feature, right? So it happens constantly throughout many hours of gameplay. Right. And every time you press the like square button, Ellie will come over and she'll do it. But at this point, because Ellie's still down about what's happened to David and she's upset and quiet and everything, and I think she's reflective about what's about to happen. But you go to the thing and you press square, and then she doesn't come, which is really shocking for you because you're expecting this button means this. And you press it and it doesn't work. And you press it again and it doesn't work. And then the camera kind of moves and it shows Ellie's like sat there, which I think just really was a great way to like illustrate how big of an impact everything has happened to her and how big of an impact like their final destination is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think they tried to do that in the show, but it didn't quite work as well for me, but that's fine.
There was something, and I know it's only been a week, but my memory's already a little bit foggy, where the way that she was reacting to Joel early on, where he was talking to her, and then that was it. He was talking to her, and she's being either real quiet or very short, and he's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And I thought, that strikes me as a bit odd because I feel like what it's saying is like what you just said there because of what happened with David in the previous episode. It's traumatized her, but enough time has passed, her wounds have healed, that she's obviously been okay in the interim for him to say to her, are you okay? Because that means she's been all right. So what is on her mind at this point? I don't know if something else was meant to be troubling her at this point in the show. It didn't feel like it was David. Obviously, it did in the game.
Well, I think in hindsight, you can look back at it, and I think you have to give maybe Ellie more credit and say she is maybe aware, which will tie into the this will tie in obviously to the ending. But I feel like Ellie is potentially aware of what this might mean for her as they get closer to their destination. So I think maybe that's what's playing on her mind. Right. And then they have that conversation like where Joel says, we can turn back, and she says, after everything we've been through, everyone who we've lost, it can't all be for nothing. So I think that's basically the crux of the matter. But it's interesting because it is very much roles reversed throughout the whole show. It's mostly been Ellie trying to provoke Joel into sharing some emotion, and this time it's interesting because Joel is playing that role.
That was the total completion of his arc, right? Wasn't it? Going from where we saw him at the beginning through to laughing at her jokes in the joke book.
Yeah, he even tells her to bring the joke book out. Yeah.
Which you need to after his little suicide
I know.
tale. Oh my God, that was dark.
I know, that was dark, and we'll touch on that briefly. I was going to say, I don't know how these things work. I don't know how to present that without sounding like an arsehole or something. But I just don't know, can you really go to shoot yourself and then flinch and miss? I don't know.
I imagine that is your last survival instinct kicking in, right?
Yeah.
When you don't... Well, even if you want to, your natural instinct is to survive, right? Yeah. So even in that moment, at the moment of pulling the trigger, if you are flinching and moving at the same time, I guess it probably happens quite a lot.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to touch too much on
the
themes of suicide.
But what was interesting out of that scene was what is it he says to her? Where he says something about the reason I didn't have a reason to live until recently, or something like that. And this is where I felt like there was a slight, that line doesn't quite stick, because what you're implying there is Ellie is your reason now. That's what it feels like. Ellie is your reason. But she's only become your reason incredibly recently. So what was your reason before that for living then? If it wasn't Ellie, what was it before that? Because you've been going for over a decade, my friend.
Yeah, well, I guess he's been lost, right? But maybe he never hadn't given up hope on having a purpose.
I
think he says to her at the end something like, you have to find something worth fighting for and just go for it. And maybe he was trying to find something. And maybe it was Tess, and then it became Ellie.
Yeah. Always other people.
It's other people, yeah. After Joel awakens in a hospital, Marlene explains doctors are prepping Ellie for surgery to extract samples of her brain to study her immunity to cordyceps, a procedure that will kill her. Marlene orders 2 soldiers to escort Joel out of the hospital, but Joel subdues and executes the 2 soldiers and takes one of their rifles. He moves through the hospital to the operating room, engaging and killing most of the Firefly soldiers, including those who surrender. When the lead surgeon operating on Ellie resists giving her up, Joel kills him as well. He takes the unconscious Ellie and attempts to leave the hospital, but Marlene intercepts, stating there is still time for Joel to do the right thing. Marlene asks for mercy, but Joel responds that she would just hunt Ellie down in the future, so he kills her. Again, I have opinions about this. I did really enjoy it, but how did you feel about Joel just starting opening fire in that hospital?
I was absolutely behind him all the way.
Right, okay.
And I didn't for a second question his morals or his ethical choices until the show ended.
Right.
And my wife challenged me, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have been cheering for him all the way through that.
That's the beautiful thing. The whole show presents this big ethical conundrum. When you look at it objectively, you realize Joel's just killed and murdered loads of people who are trying to save humanity, and it makes you think, Jesus Christ, am I on the right side here?
So is that the side? Well, I guess you've had longer to sit with it, because when you play the game, presumably you're playing as Joel, so you're in his mind space.
Yeah, you're shooting all those people. Yeah.
So you have to do it. So how do they pose that moral conundrum in the game?
Well, it's interesting. For example, you don't have a choice. You have to kill everyone. Even when you get to the surgeon, who's not really presenting much of a threat, you have to shoot him. And then you take Ellie. So you don't really have a choice. It kind of sets up the same ending, and then it leaves you to just ponder over whether he was right or not. And there were arguments for and against. People were saying, the Fireflies, they're not as smart as they presented themselves to be. So Joel was well within his right. And I mean, the thing is, it's like, there isn't really an answer. We don't know.
No.
The whole thing is like Ellie didn't have the choice to sacrifice herself, but then like Joel didn't really give her that choice either because he killed everyone. So it's tricky.
It is you've nailed it when you said for such a short amount of time, a hell of a lot happens and there's a hell of a lot to process, because there are loads of questions like, okay, maybe they were right. Operating on her would have been the answer and would have saved countless lives, but A, we don't know that. Who are we?
Well, yeah.
Who are we or they to say? B, they never told Ellie or gave her the choice beforehand. There was no conversation. C, they never told Joel before they made him trek her across America and lose countless people along the way. So you can completely see where Joel's coming from at that point, and that is where my headspace was. On the flip side, if you and I exist in that world and we hear about this one man who decided not to allow a cure to go out there because he wanted to protect one person, we would all rightfully be furious.
Yeah. And this is the interesting thing is when they show us Kathleen in episode 4 and 5, whatever it is, and she's acting recklessly, killing all these people. It's not that different to what Joel just did here. And she's presented as the bad person.
That's very interesting, man.
And it was interesting to watch because Kathleen was a new character. So when they were showing her, I was always thinking, I feel like they're trying to paint her as the bad person. But then when you compare them, I mean, Joel might have more morals, but they were doing it for like someone they love, which is just, it's tricky, man.
Yeah, man, you're right. And that's interesting. And the thing is about Joel is he is acting selfishly at the end.
He is.
You can say, oh, he's trying to protect Ellie, but he doesn't want to lose someone, again, the last person in the world that he has.
It's for him, yeah, that's it. He doesn't want to lose his daughter again, that's it. He's just got his daughter back, he's just got his reason for living back, and he's not strong enough to let it go. And interestingly, Marlene, we don't really care much about Marlene, but she's the one who's actually strong enough to say, you don't know how much of like a sacrifice this is for me. I promised her mother I'd keep her safe. And it's like she's actually willing to do it. But Joel, as strong as he's appeared to be, he's not strong enough emotionally to make that sacrifice. And it's crazy.
That is very true. I wish they'd been able to reinforce or re-emphasize that the emotional choice that she had to make.
Marlene,
we get that cold open. But I almost wish, hearing you say that now, that there had been a slightly elongated scene towards the end where we establish the fact that Ellie and Marlene have had this connection for a long period of time. Because without that preamble to the show, we never would have thought there was any real connection between the two.
Yeah. And that you're right, actually. And maybe we said at the start, like, Marlene's so cold about it, she just runs in and shoots her. Maybe it would have worked a lot better if it was much of a more emotional, like tender, heartbreaking interaction when Marlene goes and meets Anna as she's giving birth. And maybe it would have been set up better if it was a really traumatizing, heartbreaking thing that Marlene had to do.
Yes.
And I feel like it was, but they present it as like, oh, I've got to do this, I'll shoot you. But if it was this different situation, then at the end, maybe it would have been more believable or impactful when Marlene's like, you have no idea how much of a sacrifice this is for me as well.
That's it. Maybe we just don't buy into it being a big sacrifice for her because we've seen how coldly she did that at the beginning, which probably justifies and makes it more believable that she could so coldly put Ellie on the slab to be sliced up. I feel like I would have been in Marlene's corner. And again, maybe they could have changed this in the game or the show. If in that final exchange with Joel, she said, we spoke to Ellie. She told us not to tell you. She wants to do this. Because then, if Joel had pulled the trigger on her and killed her, then that is fucking, wow. Yeah. That's a whole other level. But the fact that Ellie never was given the choice.
Well, that's the thing. It's not as black and white as it is kind of we're making it out. It is. Joel is probably in the wrong for killing all those people, but at the same time, they didn't give Ellie the choice. No. We've grown to care for Ellie so much over the whole show, so now it's like, God, we don't want her to die. We want Joel to save her, and it's almost like we're culpable because we want him to save her, and he has to do all this stuff.
Do you think if they, at that point, if they had explained to Ellie the repercussions, like what was about to happen, that she would have sacrificed herself?
I mean, I don't know. I think you'd have to think maybe because she's had all this sacrifice throughout her life. You know, she lost her mum at the start, Riley, Tess, Sam, all these people. And then when she says before, like, it can't be for nothing. If she could help people, you'd like to think she would, and I feel like she probably would have let them, even if it killed her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, she seems to have that level of maturity above herself where she can look to the wider, greater good. I'm just not convinced that it would have been the answer.
Yeah, this is one of the arguments lots of people make in favour for Joel doing it, is they say, yeah, like the Fireflies, throughout everything we've seen, they're recruiting kids. They haven't beaten Fedra and any of these QZs for ages. Marlene has to get 2 smugglers to get Ellie out. They get to that place and they're all dead. It's like we're constantly presented that the Fireflies are kind of useless and having to recede and they're dying and dying. So it's like, when it comes to a cure, it's like, well, can we actually trust that the sacrifice Ellie would make would even be worth it?
I know, exactly. But then it's the thing, nothing ventured, nothing gained at that point. If that's the only hope, you have got to try.
I just want to say one thing about this scene, which I really loved, is when Joel does start shooting, and it is kind of horrific. He's executing like all these people. He stabs that guy who's on the floor, probably like subdued, but he just stabs him. And there's the music. I can't remember what the music is exactly, but it's just this like sort of somber, echoey music, and it kind of just shows Joel is focused, but he also, I think, he's got tunnel vision. He can't see past. He's like, I'm saving Ellie, and it really, because in the game you're partaking in it, so you're doing all the shooting and you really feel the impact. But I feel like this was a really great way for them to show like Joel is just he's on a mission to save Ellie.
You're right, and completely alone in that moment. So the sort of echoey feeling being, even though you're surrounded by these people doing this thing, you are alone in what you're doing.
He's like succumbed to his emotions, really.
Yes. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And you'll have to be maybe careful about how you answer.
Yeah.
In the scene where he faces off with the doctor and he, just before he grabs Ellie and takes her away, in that situation, he probably wouldn't have killed the doctor had the doctor not grabbed the knife and said, you can't take her from me.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, in that scene, I think he was right to kill the doctor and justified because it was either him or me in that scenario.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like what happens with Marlene later. He says, you know, you don't have to do this, but he says you'll just come after us. So I guess that's what he's thinking. He doesn't want them to come after Ellie and find them back at Tommy's camp. But I mean, he could have just shot the doctor in the foot.
That's true.
He's got a gun. The guy's got a scalpel. Like he's not really a threat to you.
That is true.
And he's a surgeon. Again, it's like when Kathleen kills that doctor, it's like this is in a world like this, to be killing people with these skills, it's massive.
Hey mate, you're right. There's another parallel, Kathleen. But both of them killed a doctor.
Exactly.
In that world. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
Jesus.
It's a very selfish thing to do. Like you're just thinking of yourself, but he can't. Like I say, he can't help it. He doesn't.
I would like to think we would all be big enough to think about the greater good, but I think when the chips are down, man.
Well, this is why it's such a. Again, I say it's like such a big conundrum. It's like, God, what would I do in that situation? It presents this decision so just like massively, and it's such a massive decision for him to make. But it's not black and white. Like I don't know what I would have done.
It's a huge existential thing, but it is like if there is only one person that I have in this whole godforsaken world that's gone to hell, and in order to save everyone else, I have to let go of this one person. Oh, mate, I've got to say, if I've got to decide like that, I'm saving that person.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
Maybe I won't be able to live with myself afterwards, but in the moment, I think I'd probably save that person.
Right. Well, let's move on just to the ending here then. So. When Ellie
that's not even the ending.
Yeah, there's a tiny bit more to come. So when Ellie wakes up as Joel is driving her out the city, Joel tells her the Fireflies had found other immune people and were unable to create a cure, and he quickly left with Ellie as the hospital was attacked by raiders. Ellie asks Joel to swear his story about the Fireflies is true, to which he does. Ellie hesitates before replying, okay. So, I mean, do you believe his story about there were others?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Right, okay, yeah. Interestingly, when I first played the game, I was a bit younger, but when I first played it, I think I realised probably right after the end, but when he was saying it, I was like, maybe he was true, but yeah, he's lying to her. The big question, I guess, is does Ellie believe him? and it's like you kind of get the feeling she's kind of like smelling a bit of BS there.
Yeah. I get the impression she's smelling some sort of BS. I get the impression that her is okay. Our relationship is not one of trust anymore because you're lying.
Yeah, and it's like this thing. It's kind of so obvious. He's like, "Oh, raiders attacked the hospital. I got you out of there," and she just wakes up in the car without her clothes. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, where's my clothes?
Yeah.
But again, she can't. I don't feel like she can be mad at him because she brought him back from the brink when he was dying. She fought like hell to save that man's life. All he's done is done the same for her. And if anything's shown, there's a real connection and a bond there. But it does speak to where's her mind at about what she's willing to do for mankind.
Yeah. This is another thing people bring up, actually, is that Ellie saved Joel's life. And so he owed it to her to save her life, which I guess does make sense.
Yeah.
Even if he is lying to her and she, like whether she believes him or not, it's more, like you say, I think it's the trust thing about like this relationship that we've nurtured. Is it forever changed because of this one situation? But obviously she doesn't really know what's happened. She just has to believe what he said.
If he has one flaw, it is perhaps that he should have just told her the truth in the car. Because even then she could be mad at him, but at least she would know that he's telling the truth. But the fact that he's lying to her about the situation also suggests that he knows he shouldn't have done that, because why lie otherwise?
Yeah, gosh, it's tricky. But again, it's like, put yourself in his shoes. I suppose maybe you'd be, I'd be the bigger man and I'd just say, but like maybe he doesn't want to, because he doesn't want to lose Ellie, but maybe if he thinks, if I tell her, I'll lose her. So maybe that's why he's lying, and it's like, it's tricky.
I'm thinking about it literally, right? And to go back to that thing of if it was just the one person, like if it was just me and Jenny, right? And that Jenny's all I had left in the world, and I had saved her like that, even though I would know I need this person in my life, I know that she would probably think less of me for doing it. So in order to protect myself, like Joel, I might have to lie in that situation. But equally, I couldn't live with myself doing that if that is the only person that I've got in the world. Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's the whole thing, man. It's all fucked up. The whole situation is fucked up. One interesting thing, Joel is fully talking about Sarah to Ellie now, whereas before it was like, you're treading on thin ice, or whatever he says, and like don't talk about her. Now he's fully, again, I say it's like the roles are reversed. Joel's bringing up Sarah, and he's like, you'd like her, you would have got on. And it just shows how much the roles are reversed now. Joel needs Ellie more than Ellie needs Joel, perhaps.
Yeah, barriers are fully down. It's a fascinating place to leave the show, and it's quite ballsy if the game did it as well, because it's not like, although I guess the hospital shootout in a way is, but it's so brief, it's not like a big climax to the show. It has a plot point, which is significant, but the actual end is more... reflective and like, okay,
it's just a conversation. Yeah And it just ends on okay. But I think that's the really beautiful thing about it, is it's like, what does that okay mean? And you've just got to now ponder that. It's more about the effects of that conversation and all those actions. That's what leaves you thinking, for up until 2025, when the next season will come out. It's like, what will happen? And I've heard, I don't know how true this is, because I guess they haven't written it, but I think they might be splitting the second game into multiple seasons, which would be interesting. Yeah, so that's interesting, because it is a longer game as well, so maybe that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
I know a lot more about the second game than I know about the first game, which is what's kind of interesting. Yeah. But I don't know everything. So I don't know how I'm going to play it going into the second season, whether or not I am going to... Here's one thing I'm definitely going to do now. Now that season's completed, I am going to go and play the first game. Yeah. I have to. I want my Last of Us fix again. Yeah. So doing it in reverse is going to be kind of interesting. Having literally seen the gameplay, essentially, I'm going to now go and experience it. I wonder how that translates that way. Yeah, I'm excited. You have to let me know how it goes. What about the second game? Do you think you'll try and play the second before season 2? I will probably, because I feel like... I don't know. What do you advise? It's up to you. I don't know. One thing I'll say is, now that it's like more culturally relevant, Last of Us, especially in like a wider audience, I think it's probably harder now to avoid some things. So as like casting and things come out for season 2, you're probably going to end up seeing lots of stuff. So I don't know, maybe just play it, but I mean, I think I will. I think I've seen Jenny playing enough little bits of it to kind of know things. One thing that I don't know if it's official or if this was just a fan thing that I saw online is, and this is no spoilers. I see that there is a poster of a very muscly arm holding a hammer.
Yeah,
and I understand the significance of that. Is that an official poster?
So that I believe that was the first poster for the game, The Last of Us 2 game.
Oh, I see.
So they've reposted it as in to be like, this story's coming.
This is coming.
So overall thoughts then, we're about 30 odd minutes in. So overall thoughts of the season. It's a great TV show. I'll start because I've just gone.
Please do.
I think it's a great TV show. I don't think it's necessarily the best TV show I've seen in years. Like, I think Succession I've probably enjoyed better. I think it does more. I don't know if you watch Succession.
Succession is arguably the greatest television show that's ever been made.
Right, okay, yeah.
After Twin Peaks. But
right.
Yeah.
See, I've not seen Twin Peaks, but I think Succession is doing more. One thing I think about Last of Us, it was a really good show, but I don't know how inventive it was. It's not like I saw anything new, and maybe this is because I know the game. But I do think emotionally, all the beats they were trying to get out, I fully latched on. The performances pretty much across the board, all incredible. I don't think I saw one bad performance. I know you said about Marlene slightly, but I think everyone was fantastic, and even episode 3 where there's lots of just guest star appearances like Anna Torv, Nick Offerman, all these just guest appearances. Just really good performances. Really good show. I don't think it was groundbreaking. I don't think it's one of the best shows ever made. I do think, though, it's the best video game adaptation there has ever been. I've not seen everyone, but I can't believe there's something that comes close to it. I don't know. How do you feel?
Strong words there. I thought that you were going to give it a little more love than that.
Yeah, I know. I thought I would. But I think the problem is it didn't do anything grandiose for me. It was just I really enjoyed watching it, but it didn't leave me in shock. Or the only episode that did that was episode 3, which I absolutely adored
because it was such a curveball.
Yeah, and I enjoyed. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I'd probably give it an 8.5 to 9 out of 10 the whole season. Yeah, I think it's really strong, but I just I say it wasn't groundbreaking for me, which is fine. I didn't want it to be anything groundbreaking.
I will agree with that as a score. If you were to give it 1 out of 10, 8.5, 9, it isn't groundbreaking, but what it's doing above competently. It's doing it so well, and it's if you're not doing something completely original, as long as what you are doing is excellent, it's very hard to be upset about it. I miss the fact that it's finished. Now. I miss it. There's some shows when the season ends and I'm like, all right, cool. I'll see you next season in a year. The fact that it's gone now is a little bit of a hole. And I think a lot of it is because of it was a visual feast. Everywhere that they went, whether it was internal or exterior settings, everything looked beautiful. And that's true. Funny that I'm saying that because at the end of episode 1, I remember thinking and saying to you, if all we're going to see is this sort of jungle overgrown area all the time, it's going to get a little bit old very quickly. It never felt like that. Every episode, they went from what felt like quite hot, stuffy areas to freezing cold areas, interior and exterior. It was such a rich palette of visuals all the way through. And the characters were so dense and layered. Even the guest episodes, the characters that we got to know for 20 minutes, 30 minutes were so well crafted. It was excellent. Apart from that one misstep, the episode where it goes back to the past, I found it real hard to fault it. And I think whereas you were probably comparing it to the game, I was comparing it from the off to The Walking Dead. Right. Because I thought, okay, this is similar IP that's out there that got real old real quick, and there isn't a single episode of The Walking Dead that even holds a candle to the worst episode of this, which wasn't even that bad. I loved it much more than I thought I was going to. Enough for me to want to play the game. That's the testament, man.
That's great. And it's mad because it has been a massive show, but I'm seeing it so much more I know it's obviously been out at the moment, but culturally relevant, which is strange to see because it feels like as a video game, it's got its own corner of the world where it's relevant. But now it seems like it's relevant everywhere, and you've got Graham Norton talking about the game to Pedro Pascal,
clickers and stuff.
Yeah, and it's really surreal, but it's lovely. And I agree with everything you said there, and you're right. I think the one thing they do really well in the show is show us the humanity and why people are surviving, and even if it's just a small episode like Bill and Frank or Henry and Sam or even Kathleen, like there's so much reason to survive, and
there is,
it's believable. That's the beautiful thing.
Do you reckon that if season 2 and 3 sticks to the way that the second game plays, that you'll feel the same, or that you'll be disappointed that it's not trying to go its own way a little bit?
To be honest, I would be happy if it was similar to this season. If they change it completely, I'm actually okay with that. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I'd like you and everyone else to experience that story, because yes, it can be crazy. And one interesting thing, Neil Druckmann, the video game creator, he basically says, like, I don't want everyone to be happy. Like, I actively want to piss some people off, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to the next season. We might have to wait a few years, but
we'll be a little older, a little greyer at that point. But I will be delighted to be back here with you doing season 2.
Well, yeah, hopefully, 3. Exactly. Yeah, well, hopefully we can. And yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up then. Wrap it up now. But thank you for coming every week. And I guess we haven't been plugging the FilmBusters podcast, but if you want to plug it now for the last one, you can go ahead.
Well, thank you. And first of all, thank you for having me, coming on Rambling Away, because I know that this has been a bit of a project of love for you. And so it's been lovely to be here. And I've enjoyed barbing with you. And apart from one episode, we've largely been on the same page.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we need to find some things to disagree on next season, that's for
exactly,
sure.
Yeah.
But if you do want to hear a little bit more of me, and you can also hear a little bit more of Francis, because he's guesting on a couple of our episodes, you can find us. We are the FilmBusters podcast. That's me and my friends and co-host Paul and Adam, and we tackle a movie every week. And we have lots of differences of opinions, many arguments. What's the episode that you've been on?
I was on the El Camino one.
Which I wasn't
So if you're interested in... Yeah, Ben wasn't on that. But if you're interested in Breaking Bad stuff, you can catch the El Camino one, which I appear on. So
go ahead and seek that one out first. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, man.
No worries. And thanks for joining me. It's been great. And thanks everyone who's listened and watched. And hopefully we'll catch you for season 2. We'll see what happens. It's a long way away, but hopefully, fingers crossed.
We'll be there. They'll be there for the ride, Francis, I'm sure.
Alrighty, see you guys soon.
See ya.